Okay, so we are going to do our first real server difficult kind of thing to do something real. We are going to configure our users to use key-based authentication to log into the server. Before we logged in, you had a username and a password. You can also log in using keys. Why do we want to log in using keys? Well, if you have keys, a person must have your private key in order to log in, and private keys are much longer than normal passwords, so it's essentially impossible for somebody to guess your private key. I have a log file going right now, and you can see if you look at that log file, I have somebody currently constantly trying to log into my system as root, right? So if I had a root account that they could log into via SSH, there's a chance that they could guess my password and get in. I don't allow the root to log in remotely over SSH, so there's no risk to my system that they're going to be able to get in as root, so that's why I'm not so worried about this. However, with a regular user, I have to let you guys log in remotely over the network so you can do your work. So we want to use keys for authentication, and that way nobody will be able to log in. Nobody will be able to guess your password if we have keys set up and we disable passwords, which we might do. So anyway, first thing you want to do to configure your keys is we're going to connect to CNT Serve. I created a new user account for me to use to demonstrate this that doesn't already have keys. So I'm going to be using the RBE9999 account. You will want to use your own account. You'll log in with passwords. Once you get logged in, then you'll want to run the command SSH-keygen -t RSA. That tells it to generate an RSA key. It's going to ask you which file to save it in. We do not want to change the name of the file at this point. We're going to leave it called ID_RSA. Do not type anything here. Hit enter. You want to put a passphrase on your key. This is going to end up generating a private key and a public key. And if you don't put a passphrase on, if somebody steals your key, they could log in and impersonate you on any servers they knew that you used. This is just an extra security measure. So we're going to put a passphrase on the key. It's going to ask you to type it twice, I think. And there we go. So if I go into my .ssh directory, I did cd, which is change directory, cd.ssh. That changes into my .ssh directory on CNT serve. If I do ls, I have an ID_RSA and an ID_RSA.pub. The ID_RSA is my private key. If we look, it says begin private key. It's encrypted, so that means I have to have my passphrase to decrypt it. And this is giant long string of encrypted characters, right? And that's the end of my private key. So I'm gonna use this to prove who I am to my server, right? The way public key cryptography works is I have my private key, I keep it private. If I encrypt something with my private key and someone can decrypt it with my public key, then that proves that I am me because I'm the only one that has my private key, in theory anyway. So I've created the key pairs. I've created the key pair, right? ID_RSA and ID_RSA.pub. The first thing I need to do to configure this system for key-based authentication is I need to copy my ID_RSA.pub into a file called authorized keys. Please make sure you spell this file name correctly. If you do not spell it correctly, it will not work. So I just use the copy command to copy that into that new file. And now if I look at the authorized keys file, it has my public key in there. I'm going to look at the permissions of my files. For this to work, my keys need to be my authorized keys file needs to be only readable by me. At least I'm going to tell you guys that. And we're going to do that to make that so it's only readable by me. And now if I do that, only I have read and write. We'll go over permissions. We'll go over file permissions in a few modules. For now, just type chmod. Change mode is what that stands for. 0600, which 606 means read and write for the user. Read write for the user. Authorized keys. So now I have the server side of things set up. So once I have the server side of things set up, I need to get to whatever client I'm going to configure. And even though I connected to the server from this Windows command prompt, that's not the client I'm going to configure first. I'm going to go configure the Linux client first. So for the Linux client, we need to get that ID_RSA file down, and we need to put it in the .ssh directory. I'm currently in home student, so I'm going to cd to .ssh, right? And now I'm going to use SCP, secure copy. I want to specify my username, because this is the syntax for this command. I'm going to specify the remote host. I'm going to put a colon. That's the syntax of the command. The username at remote host colon, and then I'm going to put the path to the file name, .ssh/id_RSA, and then I'm going to use a period. In this case, the period means put the file in the current directory. So I'm going to do that. It's going to ask me for my password, which I'm going to type, and it's going to bring down my ID_RSA. So now that you have the file in the .ssh directory with the name ID_RSA, when you try to SSH, it's going to automatically try to use that file for authentication. Oh, I screwed that up. I forgot my -L. Hey, check that out. It's like, why is that taking so long? So it's automatically going to try to use that key for authentication. So the first thing it asks you for the passphrase. The passphrase is used to decrypt the key. That is all the passphrase is used for. If it asks you the passphrase, that is does not automatically mean that the key is working. So I'm going to put my passphrase to decrypt my key, and then it let me log in. So in that case, it let me log in. That proves my keys are working. Sometimes, a lot of times, if we look at the permissions on, I'm on CNT serve still. If we look at the permissions on my ID_RSA, I have good permissions. Sometimes people have extra permissions, and then it fails. If that happens, then you need to fix the permissions. So in that case, my keys worked, and that client is configured to use SSH keys. This method of copying the file down using SCP, let me show you that SCP command again. So we generated the keys on the server, then we used SCP to copy it down to the local system, and then we used SSH, and it automatically found our key. This method will work on Linux. It will work on the Mac terminal. I'm not going to demonstrate that right now because I can't find my terminal. That's not my terminal. Anyway, let's see if I can find my terminal. There's my terminal. It will work on the Mac terminal. I'm still not going to demonstrate it. Windows, Bash, Ubuntu, I'm pretty sure will work on. So we're going to test that real quick. I'm going to SCP my key down. First, I'm going to cd into the .ssh directory. I'm going to SCP my key down, RBE9999 at my server name, :// ID_RSA dot. That's going to copy it down. I'm going to look at the permissions. They look good. So now I'm going to try to SSH. Ask me for my passphrase, and it let me in. So that method will work for Bash on Windows, the Linux terminal, and the Mac terminal. MobaXterm, we need to change our session configuration. So I'm going to log out of here. Actually, I'm going to create a new session. I'm going to create a new session. SSH, I'm going to put cntserve.hack.edu. I'm going to specify the username. I'm going to go ahead and connect because I need to get the key. So I'm going to go ahead and connect with the password. I'm going to connect with the password, and then I'm going to pull this key down. I don't care where you put the key. I'm going to put it on the desktop because I'm super lame that way. If you're like a super file organizing guy, you might want to put it somewhere else. But I put it on the desktop. So now I'm going to exit. I'm going to edit this session. I'm going to go to Advanced Session Settings. I'm going to select Use Private Key, and I'm going to go find that key on my desktop. And then I'm going to connect. So now I'm going to connect, and it should ask me for my passphrase, I hope. I didn't actually connect. I just saved the session. Now I need to double-click it to try to start it again. So it's asking me for the passphrase. I'm going to try to remember what it was. So now it's saying authenticating via public key, and it let me in. So those are the ways to do it with a normal terminal and MobaX term. And I just realized I didn't go over how to do it with the Windows command prompt, so we'll run through that real quick. I think it's going to work the same. So I have CD'd into the .ssh directory on my Windows command prompt. I'm on the local system. I'm going to use SCP to copy the file down. Syntax is the same. We've seen like 3 other times now. So this is going to ask me for my password to copy down my private key. Now once I have my private key down, I should be able to SSH up. It will automatically use that key since I let it keep the default name. It asks me for my passphrase, and it let me in. So we went over how to use keys from Linux, from Mac, from Bash on Windows, from the Windows command prompt, and also from MobaX term on Windows. So those are all the different ways you can do it. Yeah, the end.